I'll tell you about how I sold a blockchain implementation to a food company last year in China. You won't necessarily have to deliver this kind of sales pitch. It actually does become, it is a hard sell sales approach, high pressure sale. At least it becomes that. In the way that I overcome the objection once I experienced it, it I utilized a fear of loss sales pitch that you'll see, and you won't necessarily have to approach potential target prospects with like this. But I wanted to tell you about tell this story because it does give you some good insight. I think it offers some good insight into where customers are at, uh, where the business community is at where some of the business community is at right now. A lot of the potential customers you'll talk to will may very well be like, oh yeah, blockchain, yeah, we're putting together a team to look into it, research it, Industry 4.0, manufacturing digitization, and they'll be pretty already have some awareness and be pretty receptive. So I knew a family nearby that owned a food company and is obscenely wealthy. And I thought, well, regardless of whether or not they have are predisposed to doing a blockchain implementation, these people have so much money that they don't know what to do with it. And I made it my mission to persuade them to spend some of that on an implementation. So here's how here's what I told them. I was in their offices, which are a suite of offices that overlook the ocean, something like 20 very large offices, and the exterior walls, windows were there was no wall, it was just window from floor to ceiling. These were modern, uh, high-rise, ocean view offices, very spacious, and it was something like half the floor of the building. These offices were probably something like $100,000 a month. And everyone in the company drove $95,000 imported Mercedes company cars. And so I said to them something like, it seems to me, it appears to me that your marketing and advertising budget is probably in the millions of dollars. You correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that that's probably accurate. And you've got these lavish offices. Everyone shows up to every client meeting in a Mercedes. And so I said to them, I can see that you have a great deal of expenditure and investment in your marketing and advertising efforts. And what is all of this for? What what is the purpose of these millions of dollars that you're spending on advertising and office space and cars and all of the travel and the entertaining clients? What is the purpose of all of this? You let me know if you think that if you think differently. But it in terms of marketing, it's just to answer the question, what is the general purpose of marketing? It is to be able to say something to your customers about your product and for them to believe it. But the thing is, something's there's something happening right now. Because blockchain has, emerged as a technology, there is in the now and going forward into the fairly near future, there's going to be a change in the working relationship between companies and their customer base. And they're going to be looking for something different from you. They are, they're going to be, I can just tell you, they're going to be expecting that the claims that you make about your products, what ingredients go into your products, where your products are sourced from, etc., that those claims are going to be backed up by blockchain because the general population is starting to become educated on it and they know what it means. And yes, you will still, of course, need to have a marketing and advertising budget, but you won't have to rely so heavily, and you really won't be able to rely on that uh, asset exclusively or so heavily to persuade your customers to believe and to trust in what you say about your products. Why? Because they will be able to verify it for themselves. So I told them that, and yeah, they said, "Oh, okay, it's very interesting. That's certainly would be to not have to have these kinds of costs would be. But what is all this? They can verify it for themselves. What is, because they didn't really know how, well, they didn't know how blockchain worked at all. When I first began discussions with the family that owns this food company, they had only heard of Bitcoin. They had no understanding whatsoever of how blockchain worked. So they didn't really quite understand how it would be that consumers could verify things for themselves. They didn't have an awareness of how blockchain is the information recorded on blockchain is such a close approximation to truth that it can essentially be treated as truth. A lot of people have called blockchain a truth machine. So I got, it wasn't like I could just close right there. The sales process, in fact, went on for a number of months at any rate. So then I was experiencing an objection, and it was something like, "Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I suppose we could talk, but yeah, that's interesting, but we don't need to talk about it today. But maybe we'll get back with you sometime down the line." And so I said, "Oh, great, great, okay. Well, just if I may." I want to tell you that within 3 to 5 years, all of your competitors will implement this technology, and their consumers will be expecting this within 3 to 5 years. And I'm here to tell you, all businesses in your industry, especially considering that we're talking about food products that people are feeding to their children, are going to be the consumers of this industry are going to expect that the claims that you make about your products can be verified by them without them having to rely on any kind of a representation from you that isn't backed up by concrete, solid evidence. And that's just something that don't take my word for it. Let's take a break. Let's just enjoy our meal together. Check this out for yourself. Just Baidu this, which is Google in China. Just check this out on Baidu. Look into blockchain for tracking and tracing food from farm to fork, or from farm to kuaizi, which is chopsticks in Chinese, in your industry. Just check it out. Well, let's talk again in a couple of weeks. They did, and so the next time I talked to them, I said, "All right, listen." And they did find that, in fact, yeah, there's this whole thing called blockchain, and it's going to be impacting their industry as well as all other industries, as they learned, as we all learn when we start to research this. So I said, "All right, listen." Next time I talked to him, I said, you can go about this one of two ways. You can get started talking about this now, you know, uh, educating your leadership and your other stakeholders on how this technology works, beginning the planning process on implementation and those kinds of early activities, and get ahead of this industry trend. Or you could wait. You could wait. And in 2, 3 years, when your competitors have implemented this because they got started talking about this, you could find yourself in a panic, in a rush to do all of those things, to be, just getting started with someone like me, just talking about the basics of how blockchain works. And then inviting, for a second meeting, inviting some of your other stakeholders, your investors, your other leadership in your company to again meet with me, find out just the very basics of what this is all about. This is a process. And then, beginning like I talked about before with the planning and the detailed project plan of how this technology can be implemented, how it aligns with your business, how you will implement it. And, again, this is a process. And, to go through all of that in a rush, it could be a problem. So, you know, I would encourage you, this is all we're talking about is having some discussions about it. You don't have to buy anything today. But, blockchain it's actually not very complicated, but it isn't something that can be explained in 10 minutes. It actually can be explained in 10 minutes, but for the understanding to really sink in and solidify and thereafter percolate for you so that you can start to see how it actually how how it is so effective, or will be in your business in particular. That does take time, and so again, it's just a conversation. So let's just talk about it. They agreed to begin working with me, and the project moved forward. Since then, I have not had a chance to build that sales pitch. Well, I've built that sales pitch further, but I haven't ever put it into practice, the next part. And it may not be, it certainly wouldn't be, it's not something that would be appropriate for every scenario. It depends on the tone and cadence of the working relationship and the kind of interpersonal exchanges that you have with and the personality types that you're dealing with. But if you're still getting objections, it's probably a company that isn't going to meet with us. As I said originally, if we're going to have success together, it's going to probably be very easy for you to get us meetings. You're going to talk to a company and they're going to be like, oh yeah, yeah, oh, well, we definitely have plans to be looking at, and let's meet. So, but just this is just something to think about. I just want to offer this to give you some, some some to give you an idea on what could be said. And there is some truth in. I think you will find that there's some truth in what I'm about to present. So let's say you're talking to a company that, right now there are a lot of problems in the world, and they're telling you, yeah, we're basically shut down right now. We can't even, our staff is in quarantine or whatever. And so they're saying, well, that sounds interesting, but we can't talk about it today. But thank you. What you could say is building on what I talked about before about just getting started talking about it so that you aren't in a rush in 2 to 3 years when you start to learn that your competitors have implemented this and are marketing to the consumer that their products, that the ingredients and the source of their products has been recorded and can be verified by viewing that information on the blockchain. And you're just going to be getting started talking about it, then that could be a problem. So building on that. So listen, I understand things are terrible right now, but again, this is just a conversation. And like I mentioned before, there's a process where we've got to get through some number of weeks or longer, depending on what the cadence of and the timing of the frequency that we're able to get this meet and get this done. But just let me just present something. It's 3 to 5 years from now, and your competitors have all implemented this, and you haven't even gotten started talking about it with your stakeholders. You're going to be in a market offering products that, families, parents are going to be considering feeding to their children, and they're going to be at the grocery store, for example, and there's going to be five different kinds of apples. Four of those apples, they say they're from New Zealand. There's some very, very, very high premium apples from New Zealand. Four of those apples from your competitors have the claims of where those apples came from backed up by blockchain, and yours don't. What does that say to your consumers, to your customers? What are you saying to them? Everyone at that point is going to know that, what blockchain means, what the quality of information represented by that which is stored and presented on blockchain, what that quality of information represents about those products. They're all going to know. Your products are going to be the only ones that aren't representing for which the claims about those products are not backed up by blockchain. What is it saying to your customers? They're going to be thinking, just 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 think about it. What are they going to be thinking? They're going to be thinking, so everyone knows that blockchain is extremely effective. It's very affordable to implement. It's easy to implement. And you don't want to do that for products that you're asking me with all these, all this money you spend on marketing and celebrity endorsements that you don't want to show me in a way that I can verify myself where your products came from, what kind of processes were used to treat your products. Why wouldn't you want to show me that? I mean, really? So it's a high pressure sales pitch. It's not something that you would get away with in every situation, but depending on, what the dynamic is with the person you're talking to. Yeah, I've been in sales situations where I was able to hit somebody really hard with something because that's just how we were together. It was okay. So, uh, what I wanted to present that not necessarily because you may have opportunity to use that kind of an approach, but because it puts forth a prediction about the market that we believe is something that we can expect to see.